My sister asked me to walk her down the aisle since our dad is gone. Then at the altar, she thanked her fiancé's father for being the only real man in her life. I walked out, and so did someone else. I'm Marcus, 32 years old, male, and I just walked out of my sister's wedding in front of 200 people. Not because I'm dramatic, not because I wanted attention, but because I got sucker punched in the chest with a betrayal so sharp I couldn't breathe. And when I left, someone else walked out too. Someone who was never supposed to. Let me take you back. My sister, April, 29, female, is the golden child. Always has been. Even after our dad died 5 years ago, she somehow became more golden. Like she was wrapped in sympathy and the rest of us got ignored. I didn't resent it at first. Grief is weird. She clung to mom, threw herself into wedding Pinterest boards years before she was even dating anyone seriously. And me? I held the fort, paid bills, took care of the estate, quiet stuff, background stuff. When April got engaged to Ethan, 34, male, I was genuinely happy for her. He seemed okay, kinda smug, wore boat shoes to a backyard BBQ and talked too much about his crypto wins. But hey, she loved him. I kept my opinions to myself. That's what you do for family, right? Then she asked me to walk her down the aisle. She said it through tears. You're the only man who's been consistent, Marcus. I need you, I'll be honest. Those words undid me. For the first time since our dad passed, I felt needed. Like I wasn't just the guy who shows up early to fix a leaking sink or shuffle furniture before parties. I was her brother, her anchor. I said yes. I said it without hesitation. The months leading up to the wedding were chaos. April turned into a full-blown control freak. She was snapping at vendors, redoing seating charts until 3 a.m., micromanaging the flower girl's walk like it was a runway show. But whenever I offered to help, she leaned her head on my shoulder and said, I'd lose my mind without you. So I stayed in it. On the day of the wedding, I was wearing our dad's old cufflinks, the ones with the little fishing hooks on them. April asked me to wear them, said it would be like a piece of him walking her down. I was already emotional, but that sealed it. We stood behind the doors of the chapel, her arm looped through mine, her fingers trembling. Thank you for doing this, she whispered. You're the only one who could. The music started. I stepped forward. We walked slowly down the aisle. People were crying. Mom mouthed, I love you at me. Ethan was grinning like a man who thought he'd won something. April squeezed my hand at the altar. I kissed her cheek. I stepped back, and then she turned to the crowd and said, Before we begin, I just want to thank someone very special, Ethan's father. Thank you for being the only real man who's ever been there for me. The only real man. I stood there, frozen. The only real man? After everything? After me? The chapel went quiet. Then I heard a chair scrape, and someone else stood up. And that's when everything truly fell apart. I didn't even remember leaving. 1 second I was standing by the altar, still holding the folded paper April gave me in case I wanted to say something during the reception. The next, I was walking past pews filled with stunned faces and trying not to let my legs give out. I heard someone gasp. My mom whispered, Marcus? Behind me, like she couldn't believe what I was doing. But I couldn't stop. I had to get out of there before something in me snapped loud enough to be permanent. The air outside hit like a slap. Hot, thick, humid. Georgia, in June. I pulled at my collar and leaned against the side of the church like it could hold me up. My heart was beating so hard I could taste it. That sentence kept echoing in my head. The only real man. As if the years I spent picking up pieces after Dad died meant nothing. As if being her literal stand-in at the most symbolic moment of her life was just a placeholder. Some faceless usher to be discarded once the real men arrived. The sound of footsteps made me turn. It was Ethan's younger brother, Josh, 30, male. He was pale, shaking a little. Dude, what the hell was that? He asked, voice low. I don't know, I said, but I did. I just didn't want to say it out loud because then it would become real. Then I'd have to acknowledge what it meant, that this wasn't a slip, it wasn't a mistake. It was April showing me who she really thought mattered. Josh stood there awkwardly for a second. Then he rubbed the back of his neck. So, you're not the only one who left. I blinked. What? He looked back toward the chapel doors. Ethan's mom, Lori. She walked out right after you. Didn't say a word, just grabbed her clutch and left. I couldn't process that. Lori always played the supportive mother-in-law to be. She doted on April, gushed over her style. They'd gone dress shopping together. April used to say Lori was the mom she wished she had growing up, even though our mom was alive and right there. I used to bite my tongue so hard it left marks when she said stuff like that. What's going on? I asked. Josh hesitated, then muttered, You didn't hear it from me, but she and Ethan's dad are getting divorced. Papers filed last week. April knew. She knew he's been cheating for years. That stopped me cold. What? He nodded. Lori begged Ethan not to invite his dad to the wedding. Said she couldn't fake it anymore. April pushed for it. Said image matters. Wanted the perfect wedding photo. The family shot. The illusion. Something in my stomach twisted. So April stood there, knowing full well what Ethan's dad had done, knowing he was a liar and a cheat, knowing he abandoned his own family. And still, she looked out at everyone and said he was the only real man in her life. She didn't just erase me. She chose him. She elevated a fraud while I stood next to her in our father's cufflinks, trying not to cry. Josh exhaled. You deserved better than that, man. I didn't say anything. I couldn't, because grief and rage were doing a slow dance in my chest, and I didn't trust myself not to shatter. And then my phone buzzed. A message from my mom. Come back inside. Don't make this about you. And those 7 words are when I knew. I was done being quiet. I didn't go back inside. Not then. Not ever. Instead, I sat in my car, engine off, a sea off, just heat and silence, baking in it like some slow-cooked resentment stew. I stared at the steering wheel and tried to breathe, but every inhale brought back another memory I didn't ask for. Holding April's hand at Dad's funeral, her shaking so bad she couldn't walk, so I carried her out. The time she called me sobbing because Ethan had forgotten her birthday, and I drove 2 hours with a damn cake and candles just to make her feel seen. The night she broke down over our mom dating again because it felt like erasing Dad. I'd sat with her till sunrise. But sure, Ethan's dad, let's call him Frank the Fraud, is the only real man, right? It would have been easier if I could just hate her, but I couldn't. Not yet. I was still too full of heartbreak. And then there was Lori. About an hour later, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. It's Lori. I'm at the cafe across the street. Come if you want. I went. Don't ask me why. Maybe because I wasn't ready to be alone with my rage. Maybe because she was the only other person who knew what it felt like to be erased in real time by someone who used to love you. She was sitting in the back corner, sunglasses on, half-empty glass of wine in front of her. When she saw me, she pulled out the seat across from her without a word. For a minute, neither of us said anything. Then she laughed, a short, bitter sound. You okay? No, I said honestly. Same. She sipped her wine. She knew about the affairs, about the second apartment, the credit card. I told her, begged her not to give him a spotlight. And she looked me dead in the face and said, but he looks like a dad. That's messed up. It's image, Lori said. April's obsessed with appearances. Always has been. Ethan used to joke that she'd rather die than let people see a messy reality. Guess he wasn't joking. That hit hard. April didn't want me walking her down the aisle because I was her brother. She wanted me there because I looked right. Clean-shaven, suit-pressed, wearing Dad's cufflinks. Symbolic, nostalgic, a prop in her fantasy wedding set. I was a placeholder for a story she never intended to honor. She used you, Lori said, confirming the thought like she pulled it from my head. And I let her use me too, but not anymore. Something shifted in her eyes then, sharpened, focused. I'm filing for full separation, she said. Frank thinks this wedding performance bought him time, but tomorrow, he's going to wake up to legal nuclear fallout. I raised an eyebrow. Why tell me? Because I'm done staying quiet, and so should you be. That was the moment. The click. The gear shifting inside me. I wasn't just heartbroken anymore. I was done playing the role she wrote for me, and I was going to make damn sure April remembered what it felt like when the props walked off set. The next morning, I mailed back the cufflinks. I didn't call, didn't text, just slid them into a velvet box with a note that said, "Return to sender. I'm not your stand-in." April blew up my phone about 30 minutes after the delivery confirmation hit. What the hell is wrong with you? You humiliated me. You made my wedding about you. That last one. That's the one that finally made me laugh. Not like, haha, funny laugh. The kind of tired, bitter chuckle that comes when the lies start to rot in daylight. I didn't respond. Not yet. I needed time. But the internet didn't. See? Someone had recorded it. The walk, the speech, the moment April thanked Frank and the room shifted, and my exit, and someone, bless their chaotic soul, posted it on TikTok. I didn't even know until a coworker texted me. Yo, bro, why are you viral? The clip had over 500,000 views in a day. Captioned, bride thanks groom's dad for being only real man. Watch what her brother does. The comments were wild. People were dissecting her voice tone, arguing over who the real villain was, tagging it #run Marcus run. Even local news got a whiff. Wedding walkout goes viral. Was this brother right to leave? I hadn't said a word publicly. But Lori did. She dropped a tweet from her locked account that people screenshotted to hell. When the man who destroyed your marriage gets praised over the one who held your family together, maybe it's time to stop pretending your daughter is a victim. I walked out too. She knew why. Boom. Internet points. Sympathy shifted. People started digging. Turned out Frank had more skeletons than a Halloween aisle. And guess who used to be part of his construction company's PR team? April. The same woman who once told me, you should start your own business so you can be your own man. The irony could have filled a stadium. But none of that would have mattered if it wasn't for the thing I found next. At the bottom of the box, the cufflinks came in. The original one April gave me. There was a crumpled note. I hadn't seen it before. It was in my dad's handwriting. April must have dug it out from old papers or something. I guess she wanted me to wear it close that day. It said, "Marcus, if I'm not around, promise me you'll look after your sister. She's tough on the outside, but she forgets she doesn't have to be. Remind her what family looks like." I stared at that note for a long time, and I'll be honest, for a minute, I almost felt guilty. Almost. But then I remembered her face when she said those words. The only real man. I remembered the way her voice lifted when she said it, like it was some grand romantic line. That wasn't forgetting. That was rewriting. That was betrayal. I folded the note back up, put it in my wallet. Not because I still owed her that promise, but because I was going to remind her what family really looks like by showing her exactly what it feels like when it walks away. Update 1. First off, thank you to everyone who messaged me, commented, or just DM'd me a bro WTF. Seriously, I was not prepared for the amount of strangers ready to throw hands on my behalf. Special shout out to the guy who said, "She weaponized your grief for aesthetic points. I don't know who hurt you, but damn, you nailed it." A lot has happened since I posted. April's been in full meltdown mode. After the TikTok went viral, 1.3 million views last time I checked, she tried damage control. Started posting these vague Instagram stories like, "People will twist your words to fit their own bitterness. Real love doesn't require performance. The only validation I need is my husband's." Girl, you literally thanked a cheating man for being your emotional blueprint while your brother stood there in your dead father's cufflinks. But sure, pop off with the fake deep quotes. Then the texts started. Pages of emotional whiplash. First, it was guilt-tripping. "I thought you were stronger than this. You abandoned me." Then rage. "You made me look like a fool in front of our entire family. You embarrassed mom." Then pity bait. "I miss you. You're my only brother. You promised dad." The promise thing hit like a truck. She knew exactly what that note would do to me. She knew I'd find it. She planned it. I almost caved. But then, Lori called me. Turns out Frank, the only real man, didn't take too kindly to being publicly shamed. He showed up at Lori's place at 2 a.m., drunk, yelling that she ruined his reputation, pounded on her door, screamed until neighbors called the cops. She had to get a restraining order. When April found out, she defended him. Said Lori was making it worse than it was. Said Frank was just emotional. Let that sink in. She went from calling me her emotional rock to defending the man who terrorized her mother-in-law because appearances mattered more than people. So yeah, I'm done. I didn't respond to April's messages, not until yesterday. When I did, I sent her 3 photos. Me holding Dad's note, a screenshot of Lori's police report, a picture of the empty wall where the wedding photo she gave me used to hang, torn down and thrown out with the trash. No words, just those. She hasn't replied since, and maybe that's for the best, because the part that hurts the most, it's not just that she picked someone else. It's that she knew exactly how much it would break me, and did it anyway, on purpose, for applause. But it's not over, not even close, because I've got something planned. Not petty, not cruel, just real. Stay tuned. I'm not done reminding her what it means to lose someone who actually showed up. The church sent me an email 2 days later asking for the floral arrangement refund. That's how I found out April had listed me as the financial guarantor for a bunch of wedding services, flowers, catering, even the damn string quartet. Over $6,000 in charges, my name, my address. She never asked. She just assumed I'd pay for it. Or worse, she planned to blindside me with it after the honeymoon, when it would have been too messy to dispute. I stared at that invoice for a long time. My first thought wasn't even anger. It was numbness, like finding a bruise on your skin you don't remember getting, but somehow, it makes perfect sense. I forwarded the email to my lawyer. Yes, I have one. Had to get one when Dad died and the estate stuff got complicated. Told him the situation. He called me 5 minutes later and said, "You want to go nuclear or just scorch the surface?" "Nuclear," I said, without hesitation. Here's the thing about people like April. They're so used to being adored, excused, enabled. They don't know what it feels like when someone draws a hard line and sticks to it. She was about to find out. First step, I canceled the charge cards she piggybacked onto. She didn't have her own line of credit. Everything was linked to mine, from when she begged me to help build her credit after college. I hadn't thought about it in years. She never used it for big things. Just hair appointments, brunch, maybe a flight or two. But now, everything froze. And when that happened, the panic texts started. "Why is my card declining? Marcus, what did you do? I'm literally on my honeymoon. You're ruining everything. This is sick." Sick, right? Because making me pay for your wedding while you publicly disown me was healthy. Second step, I pulled the security footage from the venue. See, I'd installed it 6 months ago during the renovations. April knew. She was there when I mounted the damn cameras. What she didn't know was that I left them active. I had audio, the rehearsal dinner, the morning prep, the ceremony. And in one lovely clip, April and Ethan's conversation before the ceremony. She was adjusting his boutonniere, laughing. Then she said, clear as day, if Marcus starts crying or whatever, just ignore him. He's being emotional because he's not the center for once. Ethan laughed. Let him sulk. He'll still write the checks. That was it. That was my moment. You want to talk about symbolic revenge? Here's what I did. I emailed the video, just that clip, to every person who contributed to the wedding fund. Family, friends, people who had written April checks for love and support. I included a timestamp and a message. I thought you should know what your generosity meant to her. Then I posted it on Facebook. No caption, no context. Let the tape speak. By nightfall, the comments were carnage. Aunt Marie demanded her $2,000 gift back. Cousin Joe said she'd canceled their Disney trip to afford April's blender. Someone called her a narcissist in a monogrammed dress. April lost her mind. She called me screaming. I didn't pick up. Let her sit in the silence of her own words. April showed up at my place 3 days later. Mascara streaked and wearing some designer hoodie like it was armor. She banged on the door like she was the damn FBI, then started yelling my name like we were kids again and she needed me to kill a spider in her room. I opened the door just enough to look her in the face. She didn't say hi, didn't ask how I was. She just said, you humiliated me. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. She wasn't coming in. You humiliated yourself, I said, voice flat. I just made sure people heard it. April's face did this twitchy thing she does when she's about to cry but doesn't want to ruin her makeup. You took everything I built and tore it down in a week. What did you build? I asked. A fantasy? A fake family photo? A lie with matching napkins? She actually stomped her foot. Like a cartoon. I gave you the most important role in my life and you made it about you. Oh, you mean the role of placeholder? I shot back. The one where I walk you down the aisle and get discarded at the altar? I didn't discard you. You called a man who cheated on his wife for years the only real man in your life. In front of everyone, while I stood there in Dad's cufflinks. She went quiet. Not because she understood, but because she was calculating. I panicked, she said finally. Frank was there. I didn't want to make it awkward. I stared at her. You know what's awkward? Realizing your sister only values you when she can use you. April's breath hitched, and then she did something I hadn't expected. She sank to the porch steps. Just sat down, like a balloon finally out of air. Everything's falling apart, she whispered. Lori won't speak to me. Ethan's furious. People are pulling their gifts. I have nothing left. That's when the realization hit me. This wasn't about guilt. It was about loss. Not losing me, losing her image of me. The steady backup plan. The one who showed up no matter how she treated him. The brother who forgave everything. I sat beside her. Not close, not comforting. You didn't just burn the bridge, I said. You filmed it, posted it, and tried to charge me for the matches. She didn't respond. I let the silence sit for a long minute before standing. You asked me to remind you what family looks like. So here it is. Family shows up. Family doesn't humiliate the people who protect them. Family doesn't gaslight, guilt trip, or exploit. Then I opened the door, looked her in the eyes, and said the hardest words I've ever said. You're not my family right now. I closed the door on her for the first time in my life. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the bad guy for doing it. Update 2. All right, South. After the porch showdown, I thought that was the end. Honestly, I hoped it was. I'd drawn the line, said my piece, let the chips fall. But chaos has a funny way of finding new oxygen, especially when people who've never been held accountable before suddenly start feeling consequences. April wasn't done, and neither apparently was Ethan. So here's what happened. A few days after I shut the door on April, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail, then checked the message. It was Ethan, and he sounded wrecked. Marcus, man, I don't even know why I'm calling. I think I made a huge mistake. I need to talk to someone who knows her. Yeah, that stopped me in my tracks. I didn't call him back right away. I forwarded the voicemail to Lori. She called me 5 minutes later. You need to hear what's going on, she said. Turns out, Ethan didn't know about the wedding debt, the invoices, the credit cards. April had told him everything was paid for by her side of the family. She never mentioned she put it all in my name, never mentioned the thousands she funneled through my accounts, counting on me to be too loyal or too tired to notice. But that's not the bombshell. The real twist? She used some of the wedding money to pay off Frank's gambling debt. Yep, Frank, the only real man in her life, had racked up over $12,000 at a private poker club. And April, wanting to keep the family image clean, quietly paid it off using the floral and catering money. When Ethan found out, he lost it, called her a liar, said the marriage was built on fraud, that he wouldn't have walked down that aisle if he'd known she was bailing out a man who'd emotionally abused his own wife. They fought. Screamed, apparently. Hotel security got called. Then Ethan left. Walked out. 4 days into the honeymoon. He filed for an annulment that week. The internet hadn't even finished roasting the wedding video. And now there was another headline circulating locally. Bride's marriage ends before thank you cards are mailed. April went nuclear. She started calling family, telling them I ruined her marriage, that I turned Ethan against her, that Lori was manipulating us all. But the receipts don't lie. The vendors started calling her once I pulled my name from the accounts. The bank froze the joint spending card she'd opened in my name. Ethan's lawyer contacted me directly for verification. I handed over everything: emails, voicemails, texts, invoices. April tried to paint herself as the wounded bride in group chats, but screenshots got leaked, including the one where she told a friend, "It's not like Marcus needs the money. He's single, no kids. This was my moment. He owes me that much." Let's just say sympathy dried up real quick. So now, she's alone, divorced and all but paperwork. Frank won't speak to her. Lori made sure of that. Ethan blocked her. Families cut ties. And the dream wedding she curated for years? A viral cautionary tale. As for me, I'm doing all right. I've been hiking again, sleeping better, laughing at memes strangers make with my face like I'm some tragic hero in a TikTok opera. But more than anything, I'm free. She wrote me out of her story the moment she opened her mouth at that altar. I just made sure the world knew I was never part of the lie. About 2 weeks after the annulment hit the news, I got a letter, like a real letter, handwritten, blue ink, folded in thirds. My name spelled carefully on the envelope like it might shatter if she pressed too hard. It was from April. She didn't text, didn't call, just this one soft-papered olive branch. I sat with it for a while, didn't open it at first, just looked at it on the table next to my coffee mug, like it was ticking, like maybe it would explode if I peeled it open too fast. When I finally did, the first line said, "I don't know who I am without people clapping," and I swear to God, I almost cried. Not because it made me feel sorry for her, but because it was the first real sentence I've heard from her in years. No spin, no manipulation, just a quiet, exhausted truth. The rest of the letter was messy, apologetic in tone, but not in structure. She didn't say, "I'm sorry," the way normal people do. She said things like, "I thought the wedding would fix everything." I kept chasing this idea of being adored because I didn't feel like I mattered unless someone was watching. "You were always there, and I thought that meant you always would be." And that one? That's the line that finally made me reply. I didn't write a letter. I called. She picked up on the second ring. Voice cracked, immediately. "I didn't think you'd—" I know. Long silence. Then I asked the one question that had been sitting on my chest since the altar. "Did you mean it? What you said up there about Frank?" She didn't answer right away. I thought maybe the call dropped. But then, softly, "Number." Not the way it sounded. I panicked. I thought if I praised him, he'd look at me the way Dad used to. And there it was. The ghost in the room. Our dad. The man whose absence she'd been trying to replace with applause and photo ops and men who smiled too big and cared too little. "You could have said his name," I said. "You could have let him be part of that day." "I didn't think I could handle the silence that would follow," she whispered. "I didn't think I could cry and still look pretty." God, there's a kind of heartbreak that comes when someone finally gets it, but it's too late to undo the damage. We talked for an hour, maybe more. No yelling, no accusations, just two broken siblings sitting in the ruins of what was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. I told her I wasn't coming to Thanksgiving. She said she understood. I told her I still had the note from Dad. She asked if she could read it again someday. "Maybe," I said, "but not today. Because forgiveness, it's not a light switch. It's a damn dimmer. And right now, we're somewhere between pitch black and a flicker. But hey, at least the lights are still trying to come on." I didn't think she'd come to the grave, but she did. Last Sunday. Quiet, unannounced. I was already there, sitting cross-legged by Dad's headstone like I'd done 100 times before, just reading aloud the letter April sent. I wasn't doing it for forgiveness, just airing it out, letting the words exist somewhere besides my chest. Then I heard gravel shift behind me. She didn't speak at first, just stood there in that oversized gray hoodie, holding a single fishing hook cufflink in her palm. The other one, its match, I was wearing. She knelt down, placed it on the corner of the stone like it was sacred. Then, without looking at me, she said, "He wouldn't have been proud of me that day." I didn't answer. She exhaled sharp, like she'd been holding it in since the wedding. "You know what kills me? I looked into the crowd that day and still felt empty. Even with the flowers and music and people clapping, I felt alone, because I'd already lost you." Her voice cracked on the word, lost. I didn't look at her, just traced my thumb across the edge of the stone. "It wasn't the speech," I said finally. "It was the story you told with it." April nodded slowly, and it wasn't true. Then she pulled something out of her hoodie pocket. It was a wedding photo, the one we all took before the ceremony. Me, her, Mom, Ethan, Frank, everyone looking shiny and choreographed. She held it up, then tore it in half. Then again, until it was just a handful of glossy confetti. She let it drift into the breeze, eyes red but not crying. I don't want perfect anymore, she whispered. I want real. Even if it's messy. Even if it means learning how to show up. We sat there in silence. Just two kids without a dad. Two adults trying to learn how to be siblings again. After a long pause, she asked, "Do you think we could go fishing sometime? Like we used to?" I looked over. Her face was stripped bare of all the wedding gloss and Instagram polish. Just April, the kid who used to climb trees with me, who stole Dad's beers and made me promise not to tell. "Maybe," I said, "if you're ready for silence." She smiled. "I think I'm finally okay with silence." She left before I did. And as I sat there under the overcast sky, the torn photo fragments long gone on the wind, I realized something. Closure doesn't always come with revenge. Sometimes it comes when the curtain drops and the actors step off stage. Sometimes it's just two people sitting by a grave, not performing, not pretending, just beginning again.